Hello and welcome to Deep Cosmos, where exploration begins with questions and the answers unfold at their own pace. Tonight, we embark on a journey into the unknown, one that stretches far beyond what we can see and even further than what we can understand. This isn't just about what we know. It's about the vast unknowns that remain, waiting to be uncovered. The ocean begins as a whisper. At the shoreline, it hums against the rocks, a rhythmic pulse, calm enough to fool those who believe they understand it. But the deeper you go, the quieter it becomes, until the silence is so vast it feels alive. The sunlit world above fades into memory, replaced by a darkness so complete it is almost tangible. It is here, beyond the reach of light and certainty, that the greatest mysteries of Earth remain untold. Among them, one name has endured for centuries: Atlantis. More than just a legend, it is a shadow on the human imagination, a question mark carved into the seabed of history. From philosophers to explorers, from storytellers to scientists, the idea of a lost civilization beneath the waves has refused to die. What is it about Atlantis that holds humanity so tightly in its grip? Is it the possibility of advanced knowledge long forgotten? Or is it the mirror it holds to our own fragile world? This story begins not with proof, but with curiosity. The Greek philosopher Plato first spoke of Atlantis nearly 2.5 millennia ago, describing a magnificent island empire that flourished beyond the Pillars of Hercules before vanishing into the sea. His words were precise enough to ignite debate and poetic enough to inspire wonder. Was it a metaphor, a political commentary, a moral tale? Or did Plato preserve fragments of something real, something his ancestors only half remembered? But Plato's story is not alone. Across cultures, across continents, whispers of sunken lands appear like echoes, the drowned worlds of Hindu epics, the flood myths of Mesopotamia, the submerged temples off the coasts of India and Japan. These tales are not identical, but they rhyme. They speak of waters rising, lands sinking, civilizations erased. And if myths survive for millennia, perhaps it is because they are built on seeds of truth. Yet to believe in Atlantis is to confront the limits of our knowledge. Humanity has mapped the stars more thoroughly than the seafloor. More than 80% of our oceans remain unexplored. Vast mountain ranges and valleys lie hidden in the abyss, silent and untouched, while currents sweep over them like the turning of a giant clock. In that darkness, entire worlds could exist unseen, preserved by pressure and cold. This is where speculation begins to bleed into wonder. Imagine a city that once stood proud and brilliant, now scattered like bones across the ocean floor. Columns half buried in silt, walls collapsed under the weight of time, inscriptions lost to barnacles and salt. Imagine the ocean as an archivist, keeping secrets not to protect them, but because it does not care who remembers. The call of the deep is not a sound, but a question. What lies beyond the edge of what we know? What waits in the blue-black void, where even light is swallowed? For as long as humans have dreamed, the ocean has been our canvas for the unknown. When we could not see its depths, we filled them with monsters, gods, and civilizations. And perhaps, in doing so, we revealed more about ourselves than the sea. Atlantis is not just a name. It is hunger. It is the yearning to believe that history is bigger than we imagine, that human achievement did not begin and end with what we can see on land. Every diver who descends into the abyss feels it, a flicker of possibility, a pulse of something just out of reach. The instruments beep, the pressure rises, and with each meter down, the world we know becomes smaller. The ocean feels endless, but it is not empty. Scientists, explorers, and dreamers share a common truth. The unknown is never silent. Strange signals bounce from the deep, unclassified sounds, unexplained anomalies. Underwater ridges cut like scars across the seafloor. Thermal vents spit life into darkness. Wrecks of ships lie frozen in time. Each discovery is a reminder that the ocean is not a void, but a library written in a language we have yet to learn. To speak of Atlantis is to invite skepticism. Many dismiss it as fiction, a story too neat to be real, too dramatic to be history. But even fiction is born of something. Plato's dialogues were not written in a vacuum. They came from traditions, from whispers of older stories, perhaps from events whose edges were blurred by memory and myth. And if there is one lesson the ocean has taught us, it is that we are often wrong about what it cannot hide. The first chapter of this journey is not about answers, but about surrender. To follow Atlantis is to accept that certainty is a rare thing, and that sometimes the questions are more important than the answers. The ocean, in its immensity, invites humility. It asks us to look beyond what we can measure and to imagine what might have been. Perhaps Atlantis was real. Perhaps it was a dream. Perhaps it was both. The descent begins here. At the surface, the waves are gentle, but below them, the world changes. Light fragments, colors dissolve, and a slow cold creeps into the bones of the sea. Machines whir, bubbles rise, and the familiar gives way to something older, something vast. There is no turning back. Each meter down is a step away from the known world, and toward a realm where time stretches and memory drowns. And as the last rays of sunlight fade, the ocean opens wide, ready to reveal nothing or everything. Before Atlantis became a fascination, it was a story, a set of words spoken by a philosopher, recorded for his students, written down as part of an ongoing dialogue about power, morality, and the nature of civilizations. It begins not in the sea but in Athens, in the mind of a man named Plato. Plato's words carried weight, not because they were filled with spectacle, but because they were purposeful. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, written around 360 BCE, he described a place that was unlike any other. Beyond the known world, past the Pillars of Hercules, the rocky gates we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, there lay an island. It was vast, fertile, rich in resources, a hub of knowledge and culture. Its people were strong and proud, architects of wonders, builders of temples, masters of their environment. But they were also flawed. Their ambition, Plato tells us, began to outweigh their wisdom. Their arrogance grew, and with it came their fall. In Plato's story, Atlantis was not just a land, it was an empire. It reached across the seas, commanding other islands and territories. Its armies were powerful, its ships unmatched. And yet, despite its strength, it could not resist the fate of all who grow too confident. The gods, displeased by its pride, sent a cataclysm. In a single day and night, the island sank beneath the waves, swallowed by the sea and lost forever. This tale was not presented as a myth, but as a memory. Plato claimed it came from older sources, passed down through Egyptian priests to the Greek statesman Solon, then to his own family. It was a story he said was true, though wrapped in allegory, meant to teach as much as to entertain. For Plato, Atlantis was a cautionary tale, a mirror held up to his own society, warning against the dangers of excess and moral decay. But Plato's words, meant to instruct, also inspired. They invited questions. Could such a place have existed? Could a civilization so advanced leave no trace? His writings were clear enough to draw maps, to inspire searches, but vague enough to breed endless speculation. Was Atlantis a real memory of a lost age, distorted by time? Or was it a philosophical device, a parable cloaked in geography and grandeur? What makes Atlantis powerful is not just Plato's authority, but the way his story resonated with something older, something instinctive. Humanity has always been drawn to tales of floods and ruins, of worlds swallowed by water. Long before Plato, the Sumerians told of Zeusidra, a man who survived a great flood. The Hebrews recorded the story of Noah. The Hindus spoke of Manu, saved from rising waters. The ocean, for ancient peoples, was not only a giver of life, but a taker, an unstoppable force that could erase all. So when Plato described an island swallowed by the sea, it sounded less like invention and more like memory. Perhaps not his memory, perhaps not of a single place, but of something collective, of coastlines drowned by ancient tsunamis, of lands lost when ice melted and seas rose at the end of the last ice age. Around 12,000 years ago, vast amounts of ice collapsed into oceans, raising sea levels by hundreds of feet. Entire regions would have vanished. If villages, even cities, existed along those ancient shores, they are now buried, unreachable except by the most determined divers and machines. The myth of Atlantis grew because it lived at the edge of possibility. It was too bold to ignore, too rooted in the language of geography and politics to be dismissed entirely. Over the centuries, it became a magnet for thinkers, adventurers, and dreamers. The Roman writer Pliny the Elder pondered its meaning. The medieval scholars turned it over in their minds. Renaissance cartographers tried to place it on maps. Every new discovery of ruins, every strange artifact, every unexplained shape on the seafloor gave the legend another breath. Even the name itself carried weight. Atlantis, the land of Atlas, the titan who held up the heavens. It sounded ancient and inevitable, a word that seemed to belong to the world before the world. It was not just a place, but an idea, that greatness could be lost, that nature could reclaim even the proudest of empires. What Plato set in motion was more than a story. It was an invitation. Each retelling added something new. Each generation colored it with its own fears and desires. To some, Atlantis was a memory of a golden age, a reminder of what humanity could achieve. To others, it was a warning that all power is temporary, that the earth and sea are indifferent to kings and temples. Yet, beneath the philosophy, a deeper question lingers. What if there was a fragment of truth? What if the dialogues contained a seed of something real, a drowned city, a forgotten culture, a continent reshaped by the violence of the earth? The lack of evidence is not proof of absence, especially when so much of the ocean remains untouched. The birth of Atlantis as a myth is also the birth of its mystery. It is the moment when story meets silence, when the spoken word dares the sea to deny it. The world has changed since Plato's time, but the sea has not. It still hides, still guards, still swallows. And perhaps that is why his words endure, because they remind us that no matter how much we think we know, there are stories older than our maps, truths deeper than our memory. Atlantis began with a philosopher's ink, but it belongs to the ocean now. It waits in the shadows of the deep, whether real or imagined, its image rippling through centuries like a reflection on dark water. The myth was born not just to be told, but to be searched for, and the search has never ended. When Plato wrote of Atlantis, he did not realize how many echoes his words would find scattered across the world. Atlantis may have been Greek in name, but its spirit seemed universal. For as long as humans have lived near the water, they have told stories of lands swallowed by the sea. From one shore to another, across centuries and continents, civilizations have woven the same pattern: a rise, a fall, a flood. It is as if the memory of the ocean's hunger is carried in our collective mind, surfacing in stories too persistent to be coincidence. In India, the ancient texts of the Mahabharata and the Vishnu Purana speak of Dwarka, a golden city said to have been ruled by the god Krishna. Dwarka was described as splendid and prosperous, adorned with palaces, gates, and streets lined with wealth. And then it was gone, submerged, taken by the sea as if reclaiming what belonged to it. For centuries, Dwarka was a story, a sacred myth. But divers off the coast of Gujarat have found hints: ruins beneath the waves, stone walls and structures buried in the sand, fragments that make the line between legend and history blur. Whether or not these finds are the Dwarka of Scripture, they show something undeniable. The sea remembers what we forget. Far to the east, off the coast of Japan, lies the Yonaguni Monument, a massive stone formation beneath the waves. Some believe it is natural, sculpted by time and tide. Others see deliberate hands at work: terraces, steps, and platforms hinting at human design. Yonaguni has become a debate as much as a discovery, a reminder that our knowledge of the past is fragile and incomplete. Whether shaped by nature or by man, it adds to the chorus of submerged mysteries that refuse to be silent. In the Pacific, the islanders of Micronesia speak of Nan Madol, a city built on a coral reef with basalt stones that seem impossible to have been moved by the tools of its time. Though it still stands above water, much of its story is tied to the sea, with legends of powerful rulers and magic, of kingdoms that thrived and vanished. Nan Madol is not Atlantis, but it carries the same weight, evidence that civilizations can build wonders and that the ocean waits patiently at their doorstep. Across the Atlantic, among the Maya and Aztec, there are tales of Aslan, a mythical ancestral home, and stories of lands lost to water and war. In the Andes, there are whispers of ancient cities drowned by lakes, their memory carried in stones and songs. In the Pacific Northwest, indigenous peoples tell of canoes escaping rising waters, of villages swallowed by floods. The Polynesians, masters of the ocean, sing of Hawaii, a homeland beyond the horizon, perhaps lost, perhaps found in every voyage they made. Even Europe, beyond Greece, has its drowned worlds. Off the coast of Wales lies the legend of Cantorar Gwaelod, a fertile land said to have been protected by dikes and gates. One mistake, one forgotten gate, and the sea claimed it. In the Netherlands, memories of storm surges and floods are so deeply woven into culture that they seem ancestral. And off the coast of Britain, fishermen speak of Lyonesse, a land between Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, said to have sunk beneath the waves, its bells still ringing under the sea. Each of these stories is different, born from its own landscape and culture, but they share a rhythm. The ocean as giver and taker, the land as fragile, the memory of disaster passed down like a warning. It is tempting to believe that these are only metaphors, that they exist only in imagination. Yet, archaeology has shown again and again that the line between myth and history is thin. Troy was a story until its stones were found. The great floods were myths until geology confirmed ancient deluges. Memory may twist, but it does not invent without reason. Why do these stories endure? Perhaps because water is unforgiving. Human settlements have always gathered near it, drawn by food, trade, and life itself. But the same waters that sustain can also destroy. Seas rise, rivers swell, storms sweep away what seemed permanent. Whole coastlines change over time, and with them, entire cultures disappear. For ancient peoples, the explanation was often divine or cosmic. The reality was natural, but no less terrifying. Legends across civilizations do more than tell us of destruction. They tell us about value. Cities were not just lost, they were mourned. They were spoken of as treasures, as places worth remembering. This is why the myths feel alive. They are love letters to what was lost. The storytellers did not describe empty shorelines. They described worlds with streets and temples, rulers and gods. They spoke of abundance, of pride, of something worth keeping. And in every telling, there is also an echo of guilt, the sense that something was done to invite the sea's hand, that hubris, greed, or neglect opened the gates. These myths matter because they remind us that the world has changed more than we think. During the last ice age, vast regions that are now seafloor were once dry land. Doggerland, off the coast of northern Europe, connected Britain to the continent until it sank beneath the North Sea. It was not a myth, but a fact, proven by artifacts pulled from fishing nets. Imagine what else might be hidden: villages, monuments, entire ways of life drowned and forgotten. Atlantis is a name, but it is also a pattern. Plato may have written one version, but the world seems to have many. It is not hard to believe that somewhere, at some time, a city stood too close to the edge, and the sea, indifferent and patient, erased it. And it is not hard to believe that memory, stubborn and poetic, carried its ghost forward. To imagine Atlantis, one must first imagine a world before maps. A time when the edges of knowledge were not drawn with ink, but with fear and wonder. The oceans were endless, the lands uncharted, and the sky was the only guide. Yet, even in this uncertainty, ancient peoples tried to make sense of their world, leaving behind fragments of how they saw the Earth long before satellites traced its curves. Early maps were not maps as we know them. They were tapestries of belief, memory, and imagination. The Babylonians carved clay tablets to show a flat earth ringed by water. The Egyptians imagined lands anchored to the Nile, the lifeline of their world. The Greeks, bold thinkers of shape and measure, proposed that the earth was round, though their knowledge of its vastness was limited. Each attempt was a mirror reflecting not reality but perception, an image of a world as big or small as its people could comprehend. To the Greeks, the ocean was the Okeanos, a vast river encircling the known world. Beyond its flowing band was mystery, a place for gods, monsters, and forgotten lands. It was here, at these imagined edges, that Plato's Atlantis was said to lie. Beyond the familiar, beyond the Pillars of Hercules, there was always something more. These margins were fertile ground for myth, not because they were lies, but because they were unknown. The unknown has always been a canvas for human minds. But what lay beyond the myths? What might the world have truly looked like tens of thousands of years ago, before history began to be written? Science has given us tools the ancients never dreamed of: sonar, satellites, and deep-sea probes that map not only the continents but the drowned landscapes beneath the waves. These technologies reveal a truth that mythology only hinted at. The world has not always looked as it does now. During the last glacial maximum, about 20,000 years ago, vast ice sheets locked away so much water that sea levels were hundreds of feet lower than today. Coastlines stretched farther, land bridges connected continents, and areas now submerged were once alive with forests, rivers, and perhaps settlements. Doggerland, a plain beneath the North Sea, was once home to hunter-gatherers who crossed between what we now call Britain and mainland Europe. It was fertile, rich in game, a place where families lived and died long before the concept of a nation. Then the ice melted, the waters rose, and Doggerland vanished. Today, fishermen pull bones, tools, and mammoth tusks from its drowned soil. If an entire landscape could disappear, why not a city? Why not many? Elsewhere, hints of older worlds emerge. Off the coast of India, sonar surveys have revealed patterns on the seafloor that some believe could be ancient walls or streets. In the Black Sea, research has uncovered signs of rapid flooding, a sudden rise in water that might have drowned early settlements. Coral reefs in the Pacific sometimes grow over structures that look suspiciously man-made. Not all of these are true ruins, but some are hard to ignore. Each fragment suggests that the ocean's floor is not barren. It is a palimpsest, a page written and erased by time. Mapping a world before time means seeing it not as fixed, but as fluid. Continents drift. Volcanoes rise and collapse. Rivers carve valleys, and the sea reclaims what it once surrendered. Imagine standing on a cliff 10,000 years ago, the horizon farther out, the beaches wider, islands larger. Imagine a world where the Mediterranean was a fertile basin before the sea flooded it, or where the Sunda Shelf linked islands in Southeast Asia into a single landmass. These were real places, real transformations, and they happened within the span of human memory. Somewhere, in these shifting landscapes, myths might have been born, not of magic, but of change. It is this mutability that gives Atlantis its enduring pull. Plato's island was not simply a cautionary tale, it was plausible. Civilizations rise and fall. Water rises too. A city on a coast is a city at risk. When Plato spoke of a sudden submergence, he may have been speaking of something his world understood. Natural disasters were not abstract to the ancients. Earthquakes shook cities, volcanoes buried them, and the sea could claim what it wanted. The Aegean had seen islands swallowed before. The eruption of Thera, Santorini, centuries earlier had erased towns and sent waves crashing onto Crete. If it could happen there, why not somewhere beyond? Our maps today are precise, but they are also incomplete. They show us coastlines, currents, and trenches, but they cannot show us the lives that may have existed when the world was different. For that, we rely on fragments, tools, bones, carvings, and stories. Each discovery adds a stroke to the unseen picture, and each mystery left unsolved keeps the picture open, inviting speculation. The maps of the past were symbols. The maps of today are instruments. But even with all our knowledge, the ocean remains mostly blank. Beyond the shallow shelves, the floor drops into darkness, a realm too vast and hostile for easy exploration. Here, entire mountain ranges dwarf the Alps. Canyons plunge deeper than the Grand Canyon. There is room, If not for Atlantis, then for countless forgotten places. The ocean does not lack space to hide secrets. It lacks our ability to find them. To map a world before time is to admit that we see only fragments of the whole. The Earth has shifted, drowned, and rebuilt itself countless times. Civilizations, no matter how proud, are temporary. The sea rises, the land falls, and the map is redrawn. Atlantis lives in that space between knowledge and imagination, between the shore we stand on and the abyss we cannot see. And in that space, the question lingers, what else have we lost? The story of Atlantis, like all stories of loss, demands a reason. Civilizations do not vanish without cause. The ocean does not simply swallow land without warning. Something moves it, something shakes it. To believe in Atlantis, or any sunken world, is to believe in catastrophe. And history, as well as geology, is full of catastrophes. The ancient world knew the sea could be merciless. Plato described the fall of Atlantis as sudden, in a single day and night of misfortune. For his audience, this was not an impossible claim. They lived in a landscape of instability. Earthquakes were familiar, volcanoes were gods with temperaments, and floods were a part of collective memory. The Mediterranean itself had seen islands shattered. The eruption of Thera around 1600 BCE was a cataclysm that sent ash across the sky, waves across the sea, and ended entire communities. Could Plato's Atlantis be a memory of such an event magnified and mythologized? Volcanoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, these are not rare. They are constants. The earth moves slowly, but when it moves fast, it is violent. The plates beneath our feet are restless. When they shift, continents ripple and seas rise. A quake can turn ground to liquid, can fracture coasts, can lift land or drag it down. Imagine an island chain resting along a fault line. One tremor, one surge, and cities crumble. Imagine a wave rising high as a building, racing to the shore. It is not myth, it is physics. But some theories reach further back, to times when nature's violence was even greater. At the end of the last ice age, about 12,000 years ago, the world warmed. Glaciers melted, seas surged upward, and entire coastlines drowned. It was a slow disaster in the scale of days, but in human memory, it might have seemed sudden. Villages built on what was once stable land found themselves in water. Shorelines were redrawn. Rivers widened. Could a thriving settlement have been erased in that time, remembered only in fragments and stories? To those who lived it, it would have felt like the earth had turned against them. There are more speculative ideas, too. Some researchers suggest meteor impacts might explain the myths of floods and destruction. A comet fragment striking the ocean would release energy equal to countless nuclear weapons. Tsunamis would race outward, continents would tremble, and the atmosphere would change. There are scars on the planet that speak of such moments. The Burckle crater in the Indian Ocean, for example, is suspected by some to be evidence of a deep-sea impact. While its timing is debated, the idea that the sea itself can rise as a weapon is not far-fetched. Yet not all catastrophes come from the sky. The earth is shaped by water as much as by fire. The Black Sea, according to one theory, was once a freshwater lake, until the Mediterranean broke through and filled it. This sudden flooding would have drowned valleys, villages, and farmland. To those living there, it might have seemed like the world was ending. Memories of that event could have carried forward, evolving into myths of a world lost to water. Atlantis, then, may be less about a single event and more about the human need to explain what is gone. Catastrophes are storytellers. They leave scars, but they also leave silences. A vanished people, an empty shore, a field of stones beneath the waves, all invite questions. And where there are questions, there are stories. Whether it was a volcanic island blown apart, a coastal city swallowed by a tsunami, or a plane drowned by a rising sea, the effect is the same, a reminder that nothing is permanent. Modern science offers evidence to support the idea that sudden, catastrophic change has always shaped the world. The mega tsunami at Lituya Bay in Alaska in 1958, caused by a landslide, sent a wave over 500 meters high racing through a fjord. The Krakatoa eruption in 1883 tore an island apart and sent waves across oceans, heard thousands of kilometers away. Pompeii was buried not in water but in ash, frozen in a single day. These events are recent, documented, but they echo something older. We have the records, the ancients had the myths. To search for Atlantis is to stand between these two ways of knowing. On one side, geology, archaeology, and evidence. On the other, memory, fear, and the need to find meaning. Somewhere in the middle is a truth. The earth is restless, and the ocean is patient. They change the map without warning, and they do not care what is lost. The fascination with cataclysm is not just about destruction. It is about fragility. Civilizations believe themselves strong, but they are only as safe as their foundations. Atlantis is not just a mystery of location. It is a warning. One tremor, one storm, one shift, and the things we think eternal can be gone. We imagine its temples crumbling, its harbors breaking, its people watching the sea climb their walls. We imagine it because we know it can happen again. Perhaps Atlantis never existed. Perhaps it is a name for all the places that did. Doggerland, Dwarka, Yonaguni, each a piece of a larger truth. The world is not stable. Land becomes water, water becomes land, and what we call permanent is only borrowing time. Theories of cataclysm remind us that our age is no different. The same tectonic plates move under our feet, the same storms gather. The ocean is not finished writing its stories. Atlantis, in Plato's telling, fell in a day and night. Whether that is fact or fiction matters less than what it represents. That the line between thriving and gone can be crossed quickly. When we speak of its destruction, we are speaking of something universal, the knowledge that every civilization has a sea waiting at its edge. For centuries, Atlantis existed only in imagination, a name whispered in philosophy, a legend carried by maps with blank spaces. But as technology advanced, the ocean began to give up fragments of its past. Divers descended where only myths had traveled, and machines scanned where eyes could not see. What they found was not proof of Atlantis, but something almost as compelling, evidence that the sea floor is not empty. It holds stories, ruins, patterns, shapes, that remind us that the line between land and water is always moving. One of the most famous discoveries came from the Pacific, near the Japanese island of Yonaguni. In 1986, a diver exploring off the coast stumbled upon something unexpected: massive stone terraces, flat platforms, and steps rising like a sunken ziggurat. The formation, stretching across the seabed, seemed deliberate. Some saw stairs and pillars, corridors and carvings. Others saw only geology, the work of natural forces shaping stone into order. To this day, scientists debate whether the Yonaguni monument is a natural wonder or the remains of an ancient civilization. Its mystery lies in its ambiguity. If humans shaped it, it would rewrite chapters of history. If nature shaped it, it proves that the ocean can mimic our ambitions. Either way, it captured the imagination of the world, an underwater landscape that feels designed, a city that might have been. Further west, along the coast of India, another set of stones lies beneath the waves. Off the shore of Gujarat, near the modern city of Dwarka, sonar and divers have found walls, streets, and foundations that suggest human construction. In Hindu mythology, Dwarka was the city of Krishna, a place of beauty and wealth swallowed by the sea. For centuries it was a legend, a sacred memory. Now, divers collect pottery shards, anchors, and remnants of what could be ancient docks. Scholars debate its age and authenticity, but the discovery adds weight to the idea that stories of sunken lands often have roots in real landscapes. Closer to the Americas, the waters of the Bahamas conceal the Bimini Road. This strange underwater formation, discovered in 1968, is made of large, rectangular limestone blocks, some laid end to end like paving stones. At first glance, they look like an ancient road, a causeway to a forgotten city. Skeptics argue they are the result of natural fracture patterns. Enthusiasts claim they are proof of an advanced culture. Regardless of origin, the Bimini Road remains a quiet challenge to certainty, a reminder that the ocean keeps secrets and that sometimes the simplest shapes can stir the oldest questions. And then there are the lesser-known finds, scattered like breadcrumbs across the world. Off Cuba's western coast, in 2001, a team mapping the seafloor detected massive geometric structures lying far below the surface. Sonar images showed shapes, pyramids, rectangles, something too regular to dismiss. But at depths too great for divers, and with research cut short, the mystery remains unresolved. Were these natural formations or remnants of a drowned landscape? They are still waiting for answers. In the Mediterranean, divers have found harbors, columns, and streets belonging to cities long forgotten. Baiae, the Las Vegas of the Roman world, lies submerged near Naples, its villas and mosaics visited now by fish. Pavlopetri, off the coast of Greece, is more than 5,000 years old, its stone streets preserved beneath the sand. These are not myths. They are proof that cities can and do sink, that human creations are fragile against the slow persistence of the sea. Each discovery feeds the idea of Atlantis not by confirming it, but by showing that the impossible is common. Land is temporary. Rivers change course, seas invade, coasts crumble. A place that was home one century can be seabed the next. The ocean's floor is not a static archive. It is dynamic, restless, and vast. To search for Atlantis is to understand that the question is not whether lands can be lost, but how many have been, and how many stories have vanished with them. Technology has given us new ways to look. Sonar can map what lies hidden. Submersibles can glide through black waters where pressure crushes steel. Satellites can trace anomalies even in shallow seas. And yet, despite all these tools, the ocean remains mostly blind to us. More than 80% of it is still uncharted. For every Yonaguni or Pavlopetri, there may be dozens more waiting, untouched, unknown. What do these finds mean for Atlantis? Perhaps nothing. None are proof of a sunken super-civilization. None carry the name Plato gave. But together, they tell us this: the world has drowned before. Civilizations have been humbled by tides and fault lines. Human beings have walked streets now buried beneath silt and coral. We have built, and the sea has erased. In every discovered ruin, there is a silent message. The past is larger than the land we see. The allure of Atlantis is not only the question of its existence, but the evidence of possibility. Yonaguni, Dwarka, Bimini, Pavlopetri, these names are not Atlantis, but they are its siblings. They prove that human memory has reason to fear the sea, that stories of loss are often rooted in real ground. Each submerged stone is a reminder that the world changes and that we are not always watching when it does. In the end, sunken mysteries do not solve the riddle, they deepen it. The ocean's floor is littered with unanswered questions. A wall here, a road there, a shadow on a sonar screen. Are these fragments of forgotten cultures or tricks of rock and tide? For now, they are both, a mirror reflecting what we want to see. But they prove something Atlantis has always promised, that the ocean is vast enough to hide entire worlds, and we have barely begun to look. Atlantis has always been more than a story, it has been a challenge. To scientists, it represents a crossroads of imagination and evidence, where myth collides with geology, archaeology, and critical thought. Every time a diver photographs a submerged wall or a sonar scan captures something angular on the seafloor, the legend surges back to life. And every time, the question returns: is it history or is it hope? For many researchers, the answer lies in origins. The Atlantis story begins not in the ocean, but in the mind of a philosopher. Around 360 BCE, Plato wrote of a mighty island civilization destroyed in a single night by the wrath of the gods. It was a parable, a metaphor for pride, politics, and morality. There is no map, no first-hand record. Everything we know of Atlantis comes from two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, written as allegories. To scientists, this matters. They argue that treating Atlantis as literal history is like searching for the Garden of Eden on satellite images. The meaning was never meant to be measured. Yet, science thrives on curiosity, and even skeptics admit that Plato's words hint at something tantalizing. Civilizations do collapse. Islands do sink. Earthquakes, tsunamis, and rising seas have wiped out coastal communities for as long as humans have built them. Could Plato have been inspired by real events? A Bronze Age city swallowed by the sea, or memories of the eruption of Thera, which destroyed much of the Minoan world? This is where skepticism softens, not into belief, but into openness. Atlantis may not exist, but its shadow might. Geology steps in to explain the mechanics. Our planet is not fixed, it breathes. Tectonic plates shift like slow waves, pushing mountains up and dragging continents down. Volcanic eruptions can erase coastlines overnight, as at Krakatoa. Tsunamis can wash away entire villages, leaving only debris. Sea levels have never been constant. At the end of the last ice age, they rose by over 120 meters, drowning land bridges, plains, and perhaps settlements that once thrived along ancient shores. To geologists, the ocean floor is not a mystery box, but an evolving landscape. What looks like ruins may be fractured rock, and what seems like a city may be the work of water, wind, and time. Archaeologists join the discussion with caution. They remind us that extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. A handful of stone blocks does not make a metropolis, and sonar images are not cities until they are excavated and studied. There is no pottery, no inscriptions, no tools. Nothing yet to prove that an advanced society lies beneath the waves. The ocean preserves little. Salt, currents, and life reclaim everything. Without artifacts, the claim remains romantic speculation. Scientists know this well, and their skepticism is not cynicism. It is the discipline of asking for proof. Still, even the most disciplined admit the thrill of the unknown. Technology has made the impossible routine. Remotely operated vehicles glide along continental shelves, mapping the hidden edges of our world. Satellites measure gravitational anomalies that hint at structures unseen. Artificial intelligence scans sonar data for patterns. And yet, more than 80% of the seafloor remains unexplored. Skeptics recognize a paradox. The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, especially when most of the evidence is still inaccessible. The ocean's size humbles every argument. What about the so-called finds? Yonaguni, Bimini, Dwarka, they are fascinating, but none have crossed the line from curiosity to confirmation. Scientific studies suggest natural processes shaped Yonaguni. The Bimini Road aligns neatly with known patterns of eroded limestone. Dwarka may be ancient, but it fits within known histories of coastal settlement and submergence. These sites enrich our understanding of humanity's relationship with water, but do not transform legend into fact. They are reminders that nature often builds illusions more compelling than ruins. Skepticism also examines our own minds. Humans are pattern seekers. We see faces in clouds, animals in stars, and roads in rocks. The myth of Atlantis feeds on this tendency. A few stones arranged in a line become a boulevard. A sonar shadow becomes a temple. Science asks us to slow down, to separate wonder from wish. Not to crush curiosity, but to refine it. The strength of skepticism is that it does not deny the unknown. It simply demands more light before we call it truth. At the same time, science recognizes the value of myth. Legends often preserve echoes of real events. Oral histories around the world speak of floods, drowned lands, and vanishing shores. These stories may exaggerate, but they sometimes record the trauma of rising seas or disasters long forgotten by writing. In this sense, Atlantis could be a memory, not a map, a reflection of the human experience of loss, dressed in grandeur. Perhaps the greatest contribution of skepticism is balance. It reminds us that Atlantis is not a failure of discovery. It is a symbol of our appetite for mystery. We may never find its marble columns, but the search pushes us to explore, to build better tools, to learn more about the Earth itself. For every disappointment, there is a discovery. If not Atlantis, then coral-covered temples, forgotten trade routes, or evidence of migrations across seas. The pursuit enriches us even when the prize is elusive. In the end, science and skepticism do not kill wonder, they protect it. They prevent us from accepting the first shadow as a city, the first rumor as a fact. They keep us looking, testing, and asking. They allow the legend to live without letting it mislead. And they remind us that the ocean is vast enough to hold more than we can imagine. If Atlantis is not there, something else is. And the only way to know is to keep searching. The ocean is not silent. It remembers. Not in the way a library remembers, with tidy shelves and indexed facts, but in layers, currents of time, sediments of history, and silent corridors where the bones of worlds lie waiting. Scientists call it geology, poets call it memory. Whatever the name, the ocean keeps its own record, and it may hold more stories than any book ever written. But most of Earth's history does not rest under the sun. It sleeps beneath salt water. More than 70% of the planet's surface is ocean, and with each tide, each current, each storm, the sea writes and rewrites its archive. To understand this memory, researchers turn to the language of mud, rock, and fossil, drilling into seabeds that have lain undisturbed for millions of years. Each core sample is a chapter. Each layer tells of vanished coastlines, drowned forests, and violent cataclysms. Consider a sediment core raised from the Atlantic. The upper layers speak of the recent world, industrial soot, microplastics, and the unmistakable trace of humankind. Below that lie quieter ages, the cooling and warming of ice, the ashes of ancient volcanoes, even the fingerprints of meteor impacts. And deeper still, layers older than any story, where single-celled life once ruled and continents wore unfamiliar shapes. The ocean remembers because it has no choice. Its floor, its cliffs, its trenches are memory carved into stone and clay. This is why some believe Atlantis, if it existed, would not be lost forever. The ocean's memory is imperfect, but not empty. Submerged valleys off the coast of India, ancient walls off Japan's Yonaguni, the mysterious pavements in the Bahamas, all hint that seas have claimed more than ships. These finds are not Atlantis, but they are reminders civilizations have drowned before. The ocean swells and falls, land appears and vanishes. Shorelines creep inward, reclaiming the homes of those who trusted the stability of ground. Yet memory is not only geological, it is biological. The ocean's creatures are archivists too. Coral reefs, with their banded skeletons, mark centuries of growth and decline. Each band records temperature, chemistry, even storms that passed above. Whale songs travel for miles, carrying echoes of migration paths older than written history. And in the genes of marine life, scientists find stories of adaptation and survival, species thriving, vanishing, and returning in patterns that mirror climate shifts and planetary change. In this sense, the ocean's memory is alive, always evolving, always rewriting itself. To a skeptic, Atlantis remains a fable, but even they admit the ocean holds secrets enough to humble certainty. Imagine a coastline swallowed in a single storm surge, a city crumbling as the sea rises decade by decade, its stones scattered like shells on a vast floor. Without sonar, without satellites, such a loss would seem complete. But the ocean keeps pieces. A foundation here, a road there, a pottery shard preserved by salt and silt. For scientists, these fragments matter not for myth, but for truth. Proof that our world is far older and more restless than we like to believe. Memory, however, is fragile. The ocean is a restless archivist, and much of what it keeps, it also destroys. Tectonic plates collide, trenches swallow, currents erode. What is recorded may be rewritten beyond recognition. A drowned temple becomes indistinct rock. A harbor wall breaks into rubble. Even the best sonar reveals shapes, but not certainty. Here lies the difficulty in reading the sea's history. Memory is not the same as clarity. It is a map without legends, a diary with missing pages. And yet, there is beauty in this uncertainty. Perhaps this is why the myth of Atlantis remains so potent. The ocean's memory is not a ledger of facts. It is an unfinished story. Each discovery sparks imagination. Each fragment suggests worlds half seen. Whether Plato invented Atlantis or described a place blurred by time, the ocean gives us space to wonder. Every unknown trench, every unexplored shelf is an invitation to believe that the world still has mysteries worth seeking. In laboratories, this memory is decoded slowly, piece by piece. Scientists lower drills into the abyssal plains, bring up samples sealed from sunlight for millions of years, and analyze their chemistry for signs of past worlds. Satellites scan the shallows for geometric patterns that nature rarely makes. Submersibles descend to black depths, lights cutting through water older than language, searching for traces of the past. This work is painstaking, but it reveals a truth. The ocean is not empty. It is layered with history, and it is always speaking. To listen to the ocean's memory is to accept its patience. Humans think in centuries. The sea thinks in epochs. It does not hurry to reveal. But for those who ask, who probe, who imagine, it gives hints. The drowned forests off the English coast. The fishing nets snagging on ancient walls. The sonar scans mapping what could be lost roads or simply tricks of geology. The ocean never tells us everything. It gives fragments, enough to keep us looking. In the end, the ocean's memory is not about proving or disproving Atlantis. It is about recognizing that the past is larger than we see. Whether the lost city was myth or memory, the ocean reminds us that entire chapters of Earth's story remain unread. It tells us that civilizations, however great, are fragile when the sea decides to rise. And it warns, quietly but firmly, that memory is not just about the past. The ocean records the present too, and one day, it will remember us. The ocean's greatest secret is not that it hides things, but that it resists us. For centuries, humanity has looked down at the dark water and assumed it to be an empty void, a blue sheet hiding only fish and shipwrecks. But with each passing decade, the truth becomes clearer. The ocean is a world more alien than Mars, and it is the most stubborn frontier we've ever faced. When we first built ships, we barely skimmed its surface. When we built diving bells and crude suits, we kissed its shallow lips. But the abyss? The abyss has always waited, unbroken, indifferent to our curiosity. Even today, with all our machines and computers, with satellites and robotics, we've mapped more of the moon than the seafloor. Technology, however, is changing the game. The story of Atlantis, whether myth or metaphor, thrives on one question. If an advanced civilization really fell beneath the sea, could we even find it? To answer, we need to descend deeper than ever before, and this is where the battle begins. Our machines versus the weight of a world of water. Think of the pressure. At just 10 meters down, the weight of the ocean doubles what we feel at the surface. At 100 meters, your lungs would collapse without protection. At 1,000 meters, steel begins to groan. And at the Mariana Trench, nearly 11 kilometers deep, the pressure is over 1,000 times what we feel here and now, enough to crush submarines like soda cans. In this realm, light dies quickly. Radio waves do not travel. GPS does not work. Even sound bends and twists unpredictably. The abyss is hostile to information itself. Yet humans are relentless. We have sent submersibles like the DSV Alvin, the Trieste, and more recently, the private missions of explorers like James Cameron to the Challenger Deep. These craft are technological coffins, thick spheres of titanium and syntactic foam, bristling with sensors. They carry cameras, arms, sonar arrays, and more, descending through darkness like glowing seeds of defiance. They show us ridges, vents, and trenches where no sunlight has ever touched. But here's the truth. Even these victories are crumbs. Less than 25% of the ocean floor has been mapped in detail. What lies beyond those maps could still hide mysteries. Could it hide ruins? A city's bones scattered across a ridge? A monument? An artifact too heavy for myth? Perhaps. The tools we have today are powerful, but they are slow and blind compared to what we need. Sonar can sweep wide areas, but it can't give us color or detail like a camera. Remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, can go deep and stay long, but they crawl slowly, like metal spiders across a vast desert. Autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, promise more. Drones that think for themselves, gliding silently along currents, scanning the seabed, but they are expensive, and every dive is a gamble. Even satellites struggle. They can measure the sea's surface and infer what lies below, but they are reading ripples, not ruins. Imagine trying to map an entire continent by feeling only the wind on its plains. That's the level of guesswork we are still doing in many places. And yet, there is momentum. The Seabed 2030 project aims to map the entire ocean floor by 2030, using fleets of drones, sonar networks, and data sharing across nations. Military navies, once secretive, are slowly opening their archives, revealing decades of deep-sea scans. Oil companies, driven by profit, have surveyed ridges and basins with precision, data that could one day be turned toward history rather than drilling. Each breakthrough sharpens our vision. New sensors detect not just shapes, but chemical signatures. High-resolution sonar can reveal objects as small as cars from kilometers away. Robotic arms can take samples without disturbing fragile structures. AI systems stitch together millions of scans into seamless 3D maps of canyons and plains. But even with this power, the ocean resists. It is too vast, too cold, too restless. A single storm can cancel weeks of exploration. Deep currents can whip cables like strings. Salt water corrodes everything. Batteries die. Signals fade. Humans cannot stay down long, and machines cannot yet feel curiosity. Perhaps this is why the idea of Atlantis continues to hold us. Because even now, even with satellites in space, the ocean still keeps its secrets. Imagine finding not a single city, but fragments. A road here, a wall there, a sculpture half buried in silt. Technology may not give us the grand, cinematic Atlantis of imagination, but it could give us enough to know something was lost. And that might be more thrilling than the myth itself. In the end, technology versus abyss is not a battle, but a slow conversation. Each dive is a question. Each sonar ping is a knock on a door. And every time we descend, the abyss answers, sometimes with silence, sometimes with a flash of something ancient. The machines are getting better. They will see further, last longer, think faster. The question is, when they finally do, when the maps are complete and the trenches are no longer blind, what will we find? Will we meet only the bones of the earth, rocks and sediments? Or will the ocean finally confess that the myths were closer to truth than we dared believe? For now, the abyss watches. We listen, and the next chapter begins. Atlantis, if it existed, was more than a city. It was an idea, a blueprint of human ambition etched against the tide of time. Its descriptions in Plato speak of concentric rings of land and water, a central citadel crowned with palaces, temples, and administrative halls. Streets were paved, docks lined the harbors, and bridges spanned canals. Even without evidence, the details offer a tantalizing glimpse into a society that might have balanced beauty, engineering, and utility in ways that challenged even later civilizations. One of the most striking features of Plato's account is the concentric design. Islands and canals alternated, creating both protection and accessibility. From a practical standpoint, this was ingenious. Canals facilitated trade and transportation, while water barriers served as defense. Central temples rose like the heart of the city, a hub for religious, civic, and possibly scientific activity. The concentric rings also suggest a society with advanced planning, capable of orchestrating large-scale urban architecture. It is this balance of function and form that fuels the imagination of architects, historians, and storytellers alike. Beyond layout, the blueprint extends to resources and economy. Atlantis was described as rich in metals, gold, silver, orichalcum, a city that thrived not just on trade but on natural wealth. Fertile plains surrounded the city, providing abundant crops, while the sea supplied fish and transport routes. Plato emphasized abundance and prosperity, hinting at a civilization that had mastered both land and water. Such descriptions evoke visions of marketplaces filled with exotic goods, workshops crafting tools and art, and a complex social hierarchy capable of managing wealth, labor, and governance. Technology and innovation were as central to this blueprint as geography. Myths of Atlantis often include advanced engineering, dams, bridges, and irrigation systems designed to control water in a city built around canals. Some accounts even suggest the use of unknown energy sources or techniques lost to history. Whether fact or allegory, these ideas reflect a fascination with progress, the human desire to harmonize with nature while exerting control over it. Atlantis becomes a metaphor for mastery over environment, for a civilization that reached heights its contemporaries could scarcely imagine. Philosophy and culture were embedded in the city's design. Plato's account links morality to architecture. A society's order reflected the virtues of its rulers and citizens. Temples, central forums, and civic spaces were not merely decorative. They were tools of social cohesion, reminders of shared values. Civic planning reinforced ethics, hierarchy, and ritual. In imagining Atlantis, one imagines a civilization where beauty, function, and philosophy were inseparable, where cities were mirrors of thought as much as of stone. Water management emerges as a recurring theme in the blueprint. Canals provided transport, but also drainage, irrigation, and flood control. The alternating rings of land and water show understanding of hydraulics and the importance of controlling natural forces. Even today, modern urban planners study ancient cities for techniques of water management, and the notion that Atlantis achieved this on a grand scale elevates it from myth to possible reality. It is a vision of engineering intertwined with survival, a civilization aware that mastery of the sea and land is essential to enduring prosperity. Military considerations were also integral. The concentric design, combined with walls and moats, suggests a city prepared for conflict, aware of threats from both land and sea. Strategic positioning of bridges, gates, and defensive walls would allow control over movement, whether for commerce or defense. Plato's narrative hints that such sophistication may have been part of Atlantis' downfall, a society capable of grand achievements, yet vulnerable to its own ambitions or external forces. Even in imagination, the blueprint teaches lessons about balance, overreach, and fragility. The blueprint extends to social organization. Plato describes kings, officials, and a society governed by law and virtue. Labor divisions, civic responsibilities, and religious hierarchies suggest a civilization structured to maximize efficiency and harmony. It is not a city of chaos, but a model of order where each function, from agriculture to trade, defense to culture, was coordinated in a system as elegant as the concentric rings themselves. Whether historical or allegorical, this vision resonates with the human longing for utopia, a perfect society balanced with natural, ethical, and technological wisdom. Even in imagination, the city's demise is part of its blueprint. Atlantis' story warns that no matter how advanced, prosperous, or well-planned a civilization may be, it is not immune to nature, hubris, or chance. Earthquakes, floods, and moral decay combine to transform triumph into tragedy. The blueprint is thus both aspirational and cautionary. It inspires visions of human ingenuity while reminding us that impermanence is the final law of nature. In that tension lies its enduring power. In this way, the blueprint of Atlantis exists beyond physical proof. Whether or not the city stood in reality, its conceptual design informs modern thought. It inspires architecture, engineering, urban planning, and storytelling. Its concentric streets, canals, temples, and fortifications continue to captivate imaginations, encouraging exploration of both the sea and human potential. Atlantis becomes not only a lost city, but a template for contemplating civilization itself, its possibilities, its fragility, and the enduring interplay between humans and the natural world. Atlantis, in the imagination of scholars, explorers, and storytellers, has always been more than a city of stone and streets. It is a city of possibility, where energy and power, both natural and technological, intertwined with human ambition. Plato hints at immense wealth, rich resources, and unprecedented achievements. Beyond gold, silver, and fertile land, myths whisper of energy sources and tools so advanced that they defy conventional understanding, leaving modern minds to wonder, what might a civilization with limitless energy look like? Consider the heart of the city. According to descriptions, temples, palaces, and administrative centers dominated the central island, connected by bridges to outer rings. Water flowed through canals, not just for transport or defense, but as part of an intricate system that may have powered mills, lifted water, or managed currents. The concentric rings themselves suggest a sophisticated understanding of hydraulics, channels designed to distribute energy from water and wind across the city. In imagination, one sees mechanical devices turning, turbines harnessing rivers, and pumps circulating water to sustain gardens, fountains, and urban life. The city becomes a theater of controlled power, a place where nature's forces were deliberately managed to serve human purposes. Then there is the enigmatic material called orichalcum, which Plato places alongside gold as a foundational resource of the city. Its precise properties are unknown, though some speculate it was a type of copper alloy with mystical or practical energy applications. Some modern theorists imagine it as a conductor capable of storing and transmitting energy. Whether true or not, the myth inspires visions of a civilization where materials themselves were more than passive elements. They were instruments of power, integrated into architecture, machinery, and ritual. Streets, walls, and sanctuaries were not only structurally impressive, but possibly functional in ways that exceeded contemporary understanding. Myths also suggest that Atlantis harnessed energy for more than survival. Tales speak of luminous crystals, glowing temples, and perhaps a form of electricity or concentrated light. While historians caution against literal interpretation, the narrative reveals a fascination with technology as a tool for control, illumination, and display. Imagine palaces where light emanates from walls, where canals turn turbines that supply mechanical or thermal energy, where public spaces are not merely aesthetic but dynamic, powered by an understanding of the elements. In this way, energy is inseparable from culture and daily life. It sustains, protects, and inspires awe. The control of power extended to military applications as well. Atlantis is often depicted as a superpower commanding fleets, armies, and resources unmatched by neighboring civilizations. Its technological prowess, whether in terms of naval engineering, siege capabilities, or weaponry, implies knowledge of physics, metallurgy, and logistics far beyond its time. Ships may have been reinforced with materials unknown elsewhere, and their construction likely relied on an intricate supply of energy and labor, synchronized with natural forces such as wind, tides, and currents. The civilization's mastery of energy was both defensive and symbolic, asserting dominance and securing survival. Even urban planning reflects an awareness of energy distribution. Roads, bridges, and canals were likely arranged to facilitate the flow of goods, people, and mechanical force. Temples and civic centers may have been positioned to maximize natural light, airflow, or even geomagnetic alignments, creating an environment where natural forces and human activity coexisted harmoniously. Scholars speculate that energy in Atlantis was holistic, integrated into every aspect of city life, from agriculture and transport to architecture and ritual. It was not just a resource, it was a framework for civilization itself. Some interpretations go further, suggesting that Atlantis energy systems could rival, or even surpass, modern equivalents. Allegorical readings propose that the city harnessed geothermal or tidal power, using natural cycles to drive machinery or manage the environment. Others envision crystal-based technologies, amplifying light or heat, and distributing energy to urban centers. While speculative, these ideas resonate because they suggest a society in which human ingenuity worked in tandem with nature, transforming raw power into functional civilization. Energy is no longer a commodity. It becomes an expression of intelligence and ambition. Yet myths carry a warning. Atlantis' mastery of power may have contributed to its downfall. Legends speak of hubris, of overreach, of forces that could not be contained. Energy, whether practical or symbolic, is neutral. It can sustain life or destroy it. The city's destruction, sudden and catastrophic, underscores the fragility inherent in controlling vast resources. A society that commands immense power is also vulnerable to miscalculation, natural disaster, or moral failure. The lessons of Atlantis resonate today. Mastery over energy demands wisdom, restraint, and humility. The fascination with Atlantis energy continues to inspire modern thought. Engineers, writers, and dreamers imagine how a society might integrate renewable energy, urban planning, and environmental control. The city becomes a prototype for sustainable, advanced civilizations, a thought experiment on balance between resource use, technological innovation, and cultural development. Myths of glowing crystals and flowing waters encourage us to consider not just survival, but thriving, where energy is a bridge between human ambition and the natural world. Ultimately, energy and power in Atlantis are both literal and symbolic. They represent the ability to shape the environment, control resources, and define a civilization's character. They also symbolize the potential of human creativity and the risks inherent in overreach. Plato's tale, whether allegory or memory, frames these forces in a story of beauty, ingenuity, and loss. Through the lens of energy, Atlantis is more than a city. It is an enduring vision of what humanity can imagine, achieve, and if unchecked, lose. Every rise carries within it the seeds of decline. Atlantis, in Plato's narrative, is no exception. Its grandeur, wealth, and mastery over energy, technology, and resources are mirrored by hubris, overconfidence, and moral decay. The fall of Atlantis is as integral to its story as its creation, a cautionary tale of civilization overreaching, of nature asserting its final authority, and of the fragile balance between human ambition and the forces beyond control. Plato describes a city that had reached unprecedented heights. Its concentric rings of water and land, its palaces and temples, its canals and docks, all symbolized mastery, order, and prosperity. Kings ruled with wisdom, the city flourished, and the people enjoyed wealth and security unimaginable to neighboring societies. Yet with time, pride and excess crept into governance and daily life. Ethical decline, corruption, and the pursuit of pleasure over duty undermined the foundation of what had been a disciplined, virtuous society. The story emphasizes that greatness, without moral grounding, carries inherent risk. Nature, as ever, is impartial. The ocean does not discriminate between the virtuous and the hubristic. Earthquakes, floods, and volcanic eruptions are indifferent to human achievement. Plato's account tells of a sudden catastrophe, a day and night of misfortune, when Atlantis sank beneath the waves. Whether inspired by real events such as the Thera eruption or entirely allegorical, the narrative reflects the ever-present danger of overestimating control over natural forces. Civilizations, no matter how advanced, remain vulnerable to sudden, devastating events beyond their mastery. The fall of Atlantis is often envisioned through vivid imagery. Cities crumble as foundations give way, canals overflow, and bridges collapse. Palaces once gleaming with wealth are swallowed by silt and water, leaving only silence where life once thrived. Human effort, no matter how monumental, proves ephemeral against geological and hydrological forces. Plato's dramatic language serves not merely to entertain, but to remind readers of the impermanence of human constructs, the futility of attempting to dominate forces far older and larger than ourselves. Beyond natural disaster, internal factors contributed to the decline. A civilization built on hierarchy, wealth, and technological mastery is vulnerable to internal collapse. Corruption erodes trust, greed destabilizes governance, and inequality sows resentment. In imagining Atlantis, scholars speculate that its fall was as much cultural and ethical as it was geological. The narrative implies that technological prowess and energy mastery, while impressive, cannot substitute for wisdom, responsibility, and societal cohesion. A brilliant city can be undone by human failure as readily as by natural disaster. Some theorists extend this vision to environmental mismanagement. The concentric canals and massive urban projects of Atlantis, while feats of engineering, may have strained the landscape. Soil erosion, overuse of resources, and disruption of natural water flows could have weakened the city's resilience. Myths may exaggerate, but they often encode truths about human-environment interaction. Atlantis becomes a parable for sustainable living. Even advanced civilizations must respect ecological limits or face consequences. The moral dimension of the fall also resonates with modern audiences. Atlantis' decline serves as an enduring warning against hubris, the belief that human ingenuity alone can defy natural law. It reminds us that power, wealth, and technological capability are neutral. They can create or destroy depending on use and intent. The narrative suggests that ethical stewardship is inseparable from the exercise of capability, and that ignoring moral and environmental responsibilities invites catastrophe. Plato's description of the suddenness of Atlantis reinforces the fragility of civilization. One moment, the city thrives, the next, it is gone. Such abruptness is mirrored in historical events. Earthquakes that level cities, tsunamis that reshape coastlines, volcanic eruptions that erase entire communities. In each case, the lessons are consistent. Preparedness and humility are crucial, and even the most brilliant designs are subject to forces beyond control. Atlantis' fall, whether fact or allegory, dramatizes this vulnerability in timeless terms. The imagery of destruction also emphasizes scale and inevitability. Oceans reclaim what humans claim for themselves. Stones that once formed bridges and walls sink. Canals fill with sediment, and life retreats from submerged streets. Nature's reclamation is total. Human effort becomes fossilized memory. In this sense, Atlantis embodies not only the end of a civilization, but also the ocean's enduring dominance, a reminder that no matter how advanced or prosperous, humanity must negotiate its place with the planet's fundamental rhythms. The fall leaves a paradoxical legacy. On one hand, Atlantis vanishes entirely, erased from physical history. On the other, it survives in imagination, memory, and cautionary tale. Its story persists in philosophy, art, literature, and exploration. The collapse, therefore, is not just an end but a transformation. A civilization lost in time becomes immortal in narrative. This duality enhances the myth's power, illustrating that even in destruction, civilizations can teach lessons for generations to come. In contemplating Atlantis' fall, modern readers find both intrigue and introspection. The city's demise is dramatic, almost cinematic. Walls crumbling, waters surging, temples disappearing into the abyss. Yet beneath the spectacle lies a profound meditation on vulnerability, ethics, and the interplay between humans and the natural world. Atlantis warns that no matter how brilliant, no matter how technologically advanced, a civilization remains contingent upon its respect for law, nature, and morality. Ultimately, the fall of Atlantis is a story that transcends time. It is a narrative of impermanence, a reminder that civilization is fragile and that progress is inseparable from responsibility. The oceans, indifferent and patient, reclaim what is built. Ethics and wisdom, unlike stone and metal, are not guaranteed to endure. Atlantis, whether real or imagined, stands as a cautionary emblem. The higher a society rises, the more catastrophic its potential fall, and the more necessary humility, foresight, and balance become for survival. Even as legends of Atlantis swirl through history, the ocean quietly guards fragments of what might once have been. Many of these remnants are not found in fabled deep trenches or unexplored abyssal plains, but in waters relatively close to human habitation, hidden in plain sight. Sunken harbors, submerged streets, and eroded coastlines to the edges of continents, waiting for discovery beneath shallow waves. often overlooked by those walking along beaches or sailing above them. Consider the Mediterranean, a cradle of civilizations for millennia. Along its coasts lie harbors now drowned, villas swallowed by sand, and columns lying sideways in shallow water. The Roman city of Baiae, once a playground for emperors, now rests beneath the Gulf of Naples, where divers explore mosaics, statues, and the remains of thermal baths. These submerged treasures, visible to anyone with a boat and curiosity, demonstrate that even well-documented civilizations can be hidden by a few meters of water and centuries of sediment. To the untrained eye, nothing seems remarkable. To the informed observer, the past is present, only waiting to be noticed. Off Greece, Pavlopetri presents a similar case. Dated to over 5,000 years ago, it preserves streets, houses, and tombs beneath the shallow sea. Archaeologists have been able to map its entire layout without extensive diving, using sonar and underwater photography. The city reveals patterns of urban planning, water management, and social organization. What is striking is its accessibility. Though submerged, it lies close enough to shore that human observation is possible. It is a reminder that hidden does not always mean distant or unreachable. Often, it simply means overlooked. The Indian subcontinent also offers examples. Off the coast of Dwarka, sonar has revealed walls, foundations, and other artifacts beneath shallow water. Linked to the mythic city of Krishna, these submerged remains demonstrate that legends of vanished civilizations may be rooted in real, tangible locations. Fishermen and local communities sometimes report unusual formations or objects caught in nets, small clues that hint at what lies below. In these cases, the ocean conceals history not in mystery alone, but in plain sight, awaiting systematic exploration. Technology increasingly exposes these secrets. Sonar mapping, aerial drones, and satellite imaging allow researchers to detect anomalies beneath relatively shallow waters. Changes in seabed texture, variations in water depth, and differences in sediment density all hint at structures now underwater. Once identified, these sites can be investigated by diverse or remote vehicles, revealing patterns consistent with human activity. Yet the paradox remains. What is technologically detectable is still invisible to the casual observer. The ocean preserves while it camouflages, offering the past without announcing it. Even modern coastlines hold stories of loss. Rising sea levels over the past several thousand years have drowned river deltas, low-lying settlements, and islands. Archaeological evidence suggests that humans adapted to changing shorelines, moving settlements inland or abandoning them entirely. Yet some remnants remain frozen in place beneath shallow water, waiting to be rediscovered. Every lost pier, stone wall, or submerged foundation is a silent witness to the resilience and vulnerability of human society. In this sense, Atlantis-like landscapes may exist not as isolated myths, but as echoes of a common historical process, coastal settlements claimed by time and tide. In the Caribbean and the Bahamas, formations such as the Bimini Road illustrate how naturally occurring structures can blend with human-like design. Large stone blocks lie in straight lines beneath the shallow sea, creating the illusion of roads or walls. Divers can explore these formations without traveling to the deepest trenches, and yet their appearance prompts questions about origin, function, and history. Such anomalies demonstrate the thin line between natural processes and human intervention, showing how easily the past can be hidden in plain sight. The psychological effect is profound. When submerged ruins exist close to human activity, yet remain unnoticed, they reinforce the allure of Atlantis. They create a tension between the visible and the invisible, the known and the unknown. For centuries, sailors, fishermen, and coastal dwellers may have passed over these sites, unaware of their significance. Modern tools reveal them. Yet even today, countless similar remnants likely remain undetected, camouflaged by sand, seaweed, and currents. The ocean conceals, but it does not entirely erase. Human activity can obscure as much as the sea. Coastal development, dredging, and pollution sometimes destroy or scatter evidence before it is documented. Paradoxically, the same waters that preserve ancient streets also host modern debris, complicating identification. Yet despite these challenges, the presence of accessible submerged structures proves a simple truth. The past is often beneath our feet, literally hidden in plain sight. The ocean's surface may appear calm and empty, but beneath lies a layer of history waiting for discovery. The lesson extends beyond archaeology. Atlantis' enduring appeal lies partly in this paradox. A civilization that may have existed or may only have been imagined remains visible to those who know how to look. By studying sunken settlements and anomalies close to shore, we learn not only about historical loss, but also about perception, attention, and the persistence of memory. The ocean, in hiding these sites, teaches patience, observation, and humility. It reminds us that human eyes alone are insufficient. Knowledge, curiosity, and technology are necessary to uncover what lies just beneath. Ultimately, hidden in plain sight, captures the dual nature of discovery. The ocean is both generous and secretive, providing glimpses of lost worlds while concealing their broader context. The ruins that lie within reach illustrate that history is layered, often only a meter or two underwater, waiting for those willing to explore. In every submerged wall, sunken dock, or eroded city, Atlantis lives on, not as a single city, perhaps, but as a pattern of loss, memory, and the subtle persistence of the past. Despite centuries of exploration, the vast majority of the ocean remains unknown, a realm so immense and inaccessible that it dwarfs all human achievements in mapping and discovery. Scientists estimate that over 80% of the seafloor has yet to be studied in high resolution, leaving the deep seas as one of the final frontiers on Earth. This uncharted expanse fuels both scientific inquiry and the imagination, a realm where Atlantis could lie and countless other mysteries await beneath the waves. Mapping the ocean is an extraordinary technical challenge. Pressure increases dramatically with depth, crushing all but the most specialized vessels. Darkness dominates beyond a few hundred meters, and temperatures can drop near freezing. Submersibles, remotely operated vehicles, and deep-sea probes provide glimpses, but each covers only a fraction of the vast expanse. Even with the latest sonar technology, scanning entire ocean basins at high resolution would take decades. In effect, the ocean remains a world largely unexplored, a landscape where hidden features, sunken cities, and ancient coastlines may still exist unnoticed. The unmapped ocean floor is far from uniform. Beneath the waves lie towering mountains taller than the Alps, trenches deeper than the Grand Canyon, and plains stretching for thousands of kilometers. Submerged volcanic islands, mid-ocean ridges, and fault lines shape the seafloor with dramatic complexity. These formations create natural hiding places, concealing sediments, ruins, or fossilized landscapes. The terrain itself can mislead or obscure findings. A linear rock formation might appear to be a wall, and a natural plateau might resemble a city square. Technology helps us see, but the ocean's complexity continually tests interpretation. Historical change further complicates exploration. Over millennia, rising sea levels have submerged coastlines, plains, and river valleys. Ancient settlements now lie dozens of meters underwater, often buried beneath layers of silt and sediment. Ice ages, tectonic shifts, and erosion have continuously reshaped the ocean floor. Even where human habitation once existed, evidence may be scattered, eroded, or completely destroyed. The ocean is both a preserver and an eraser, maintaining certain records while concealing others beneath layers of time. Yet the unmapped areas are not lifeless. Hydrothermal vents, deep-sea coral reefs, and complex ecosystems thrive in total darkness, offering glimpses of biodiversity that challenge assumptions about life. Each expedition uncovers species unknown to science, creatures adapted to crushing pressures and freezing temperatures, and unique ecological interactions that reveal the resilience of life in extreme conditions. These discoveries remind us that the ocean's mysteries extend beyond human history. Its depths preserve natural phenomena equally astonishing, equally alien. Technological advancement accelerates exploration, but the scale remains staggering. Autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, and multi-beam sonar systems allow systematic surveys, while satellites monitor surface anomalies that may indicate submerged features. High-resolution mapping combines thousands of individual passes into detailed bathymetric charts, gradually illuminating the dark. Yet, even with these tools, entire regions remain untouched, and each mission only scratches the surface. The ocean continues to be a place of partial knowledge, where every discovery is paired with the realization of how much remains unseen. This uncharted status gives the ocean a mythical quality. The unknown deep fuels legends like Atlantis because the human mind naturally fills gaps with possibility. When 80% of a domain is unexplored, imagination thrives. Shipwrecks, natural formations, and unusual sonar readings all become fertile ground for speculation. Science, while cautious, acknowledges the sheer volume of what we cannot yet verify. The uncharted ocean is a reminder that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Atlantis could, theoretically, be anywhere or nowhere, concealed by vast stretches of unmapped waters. Exploration is also a race against time. Human activity, climate change, and pollution affect coastal and shallow regions, sometimes destroying what might have been preserved for millennia. Rising temperatures, acidifying waters, and industrial development threaten archaeological and ecological treasures alike. The unmapped ocean thus represents both potential and urgency. Within the hidden reaches lie discoveries of past civilizations, fossil records, and ecosystems, but each remains vulnerable to disturbance before it is understood or documented. The ocean's unexplored regions serve as a mirror for human curiosity and ambition. They represent a frontier where technology, science, and imagination converge. Each expedition offers the potential to rewrite our understanding of history, revealing sunken cities, ancient riverbeds, or geological formations previously unknown. The very act of exploration underscores human ingenuity to penetrate darkness, withstand pressure, and decipher the faintest clues left by time. It is a testament to both what we have achieved and how far we still have to go. Ultimately, the unmapped ocean is a canvas for possibility. Its depths remind us of the limits of knowledge and the persistence of mystery. Atlantis, while unproven, embodies this tension, a symbol of human desire to uncover what lies hidden, of civilizations lost, and of secrets waiting patiently beneath waves. As technology advances and exploration continues, portions of the ocean long invisible may finally reveal their stories, expanding our understanding of history, life, and the planet itself. Yet even then, the deep will remain vast, elusive, and compelling, a realm where discovery and imagination exist side by side. Atlantis has long occupied a space between history and imagination, but in the modern era, science fiction has shaped how we explore the ocean, blurring the line between myth and empirical observation. Stories of advanced civilizations, lost technologies, and cities beneath the waves have inspired both explorers and researchers to look for evidence, sometimes pushing the boundaries of possibility into plausible investigation. In effect, fiction becomes a map, guiding curiosity toward corners of the ocean that may otherwise have been overlooked. The process begins with imagination. Writers envision Atlantis not merely as a city of stone and canals, but as a hub of technology, energy, and knowledge beyond their time. These stories include ideas of crystal-powered machinery, sophisticated hydraulics, and energy manipulation that exceed historical precedent. While clearly speculative, these portrayals provoke questions. Could an advanced civilization exist before recorded history? Might unknown energy sources or technological innovations have been lost with time? Such questions frame research agendas and exploration priorities, influencing what scientists choose to investigate and how they interpret anomalies. Explorers and marine archaeologists sometimes acknowledge the influence of fiction on real-world searches. Tales of sunken cities, mythical continents, and fantastical architecture spark hypotheses that can then be tested using sonar, submersibles, and sediment analysis. Even when investigators approach projects scientifically, They often admit that the initial inspiration came from legends or speculative literature. The intersection of narrative and data demonstrates a feedback loop. Imagination directs inquiry. Inquiry informs interpretation, and discoveries, in turn, feed new stories. Technology amplifies this effect. Sonar images of straight lines on the seafloor, terraces resembling streets, or geometrical formations invite interpretation, and fiction provides a lens for understanding anomalies. The human brain is drawn to pattern and story. When a formation resembles a wall or foundation, speculative ideas like Atlantis or lost cities naturally arise. Science fiction offers a vocabulary to discuss these features, bridging the gap between raw observation and meaning. Without imaginative frameworks, many discoveries might be cataloged as curiosities. With them, they become part of a larger narrative of exploration and possibility. This interplay is visible in popular culture. Documentaries, novels, and films frequently merge scientific investigation with storytelling, presenting sonar scans or submersible footage alongside speculative interpretations. The audience experiences discovery as both data and myth, and the public imagination is engaged. This, in turn, drives funding, interest, and technological development. Expeditions are often supported not solely for academic purposes, but because the stories themselves have created a perceived value in uncovering hidden civilizations. Fiction, therefore, indirectly influences the course of real exploration. Yet the blending of fiction and reality carries risks. Expectation can shape interpretation, leading observers to see intentional design in natural formations or to overstate significance of anomalies. Confirmation bias can affect conclusions. Researchers may inadvertently favor explanations that align with popular myths. Rigorous methods, peer review, and reproducible data are essential safeguards, ensuring that speculation does not masquerade as evidence. Nevertheless, the dialogue between story and science remains productive, prompting inquiries that might never have occurred without the initial imaginative spark. Atlantis exemplifies this phenomenon. The narrative of a lost civilization, combined with geological and archaeological curiosity, has inspired numerous expeditions worldwide. Researchers probe submerged ruins off Japan, India, the Caribbean, and the Mediterranean, often motivated as much by the legend as by potential historical significance. In these contexts, fiction acts as a guide, highlighting areas for investigation and encouraging creative hypotheses. Without it, some shallow or subtle anomalies may have been dismissed entirely, lost in the ocean's vastness. The influence extends to technological innovation as well. Fictional visions of deep-sea exploration, autonomous submarines, and remote mapping systems inspire engineers to develop real instruments capable of reaching previously inaccessible regions. Concepts once considered impossible, long-range ROVs, 3D sonar mapping, underwater drones, are now standard tools in marine research. Storytelling, therefore, shapes not just where we look, but how we look, turning narrative speculation into tangible advances in capability. Moreover, the blending of fiction and reality affects public perception. Documentaries, books, and media coverage often present explorations in the context of myth, creating excitement and engagement. Viewers are drawn not only to scientific detail, but to the possibility that something extraordinary might be discovered. This engagement generates funding, interest, and broader support for oceanic research, demonstrating the practical impact of narrative imagination. Science and fiction, in this sense, are mutually reinforcing. One provides methods, the other provides motivation. Even skeptics acknowledge that imagination fuels inquiry. The ocean is so vast, deep, and complex that it defies conventional understanding. Without speculative frameworks, human exploration would be constrained to known and predictable targets. Myths like Atlantis encourage the expansion of horizons, suggesting locations, possibilities, and questions that might otherwise remain unexplored. Fiction becomes a form of hypothesis generation, prompting empirical testing and technological refinement. Ultimately, science fiction bleeding into reality, illustrates the synergy between imagination and investigation. Atlantis is more than legend. It is a lens through which humanity examines the unknown. Fiction inspires technology, exploration, and curiosity, while science grounds these endeavors in evidence, observation, and analysis. The ocean, largely unmapped and mysterious, is fertile ground for this interaction. Each sonar line, submersible dive, or submerged anomaly exists at the intersection of what is known and what is imagined, where myth catalyzes discovery and discovery fuels myth in an ongoing cycle. The lesson is profound. The boundaries of reality are often shaped by what we dare to imagine. Atlantis endures because it occupies this space, an idea rooted in legend, yet compelling enough to influence real-world exploration. In pursuing the unknown, humanity learns to navigate not only the physical depths of the ocean, but the conceptual depths of possibility, where fiction and fact entwine, driving both discovery and wonder. In this domain, the myth is not merely a story. It is a compass guiding humanity toward the mysteries the ocean has hidden in plain sight. The possibility of discovering Atlantis, or any sunken civilization, remains a tantalizing question, one that ignites both imagination and speculation. What if, tomorrow, a submersible crew surfaced with definitive proof? The implications would ripple through science, history, culture, and even global consciousness. It is a scenario that forces reflection on human perception, the nature of evidence, and the consequences of encountering a civilization lost to time. In the scientific realm, confirmation of Atlantis would rewrite understanding of ancient engineering, urban planning, and social organization. Archaeologists would face an unprecedented opportunity to study structures preserved beneath the sea, to examine materials, layouts, and artifacts in situ. Technologies that modern engineers take for granted, irrigation, hydraulics, metallurgy, might suddenly be revealed in unexpected forms, predating known civilizations. Researchers would scrutinize construction techniques, energy systems, and city planning, attempting to map the logic behind a society that flourished and disappeared long before recorded history. Historical scholarship would undergo a profound shift. Plato's dialogues, once considered allegorical or moralistic, might be reinterpreted as fragments of a factual account. Ancient records from surrounding civilizations, Egyptian, Greek, Mesopotamian, would be revisited for corroborating details, with anthropologists searching for evidence of trade, cultural exchange, or conflict. Mythology and history would merge in a tangible way, providing a rare intersection where legend becomes evidence. Texts, stories, and oral traditions might suddenly be seen as carriers of information, blending narrative with the historical record. The cultural impact would be immediate and global. Public imagination thrives on mysteries revealed, and confirmation of a lost civilization would dominate media, education, and entertainment. Documentaries, novels, films, and interactive experiences would explore the architecture, technology, and social structures of Atlantis. Schools would teach a revised history, incorporating lessons drawn not only from evidence, but from the extraordinary possibility that human ingenuity has roots far deeper than previously recognized. The idea of a sunken city would no longer be abstract. It would become a tangible reality. Politically and economically, the discovery would be complex. Sunken ruins may exist within modern territorial waters, raising questions of sovereignty, ownership, and preservation. Nations might claim the right to investigate or display artifacts, creating tensions or collaborations. Tourism, research funding, and media attention would surge. Conservation efforts would become crucial to protect fragile structures from exploitation, looting, or environmental damage. The world would confront the challenge of balancing curiosity, commerce, and ethical stewardship, recognizing that such a discovery is not merely academic but profoundly practical. The environmental dimension would also be significant. Submerged sites offer insight into rising sea levels, tectonic activity, and climate change over millennia. Atlantis, if found, could provide data on how coastal civilizations adapted or failed to adapt to shifting conditions. Oceanographers could study sediment layers, coral growth, and marine ecosystems, learning lessons that are increasingly relevant as humanity grapples with climate instability. The city's remains would serve both as a historical archive and as a warning. Even the most advanced civilization is vulnerable to environmental forces. Public perception would face challenges of interpretation. What people imagine Atlantis to be, a utopia, a hub of advanced technology, a moral exemplar, might differ from the reality revealed by archaeology. The contrast between myth and fact could provoke debate, disappointment, or renewed fascination. Yet the act of discovery would also elevate understanding, reminding humanity that reality can be as wondrous, complex, and mysterious as any legend. The process of uncovering the city would itself be a spectacle, a blend of science, storytelling, and collective wonder. Emotionally, the discovery would resonate on a deeply human level. Atlantis embodies aspirations, fears, and curiosity about origins, achievement, and impermanence. Finding it would connect people across continents and generations to a shared sense of history, achievement, and loss. It would evoke questions about identity, legacy, and what civilizations leave behind. In a world that often feels fragmented, Atlantis could provide a touchstone for collective reflection, a reminder that human creativity and ambition have deep, sometimes forgotten, roots. Even the technological consequences would be profound. Discovering remnants of advanced engineering could inspire modern innovation, from construction techniques to energy management. Engineers, designers, and scientists would analyze artifacts for insights into materials, efficiency, and sustainability. Lessons learned from a civilization lost to the sea might offer inspiration for present and future challenges, demonstrating that ingenuity is timeless and that understanding history can inform contemporary problem-solving. Ethically, the discovery would pose questions as challenging as the technical ones. How should artifacts be handled? Should parts of the city be excavated, restored, or left untouched? Who has the right to decide, and on what basis? The presence of a lost civilization in our era forces a reckoning. The past belongs to everyone, yet human intervention carries the risk of erasing or misrepresenting it. Atlantis, in this scenario, is both a gift and a responsibility, requiring wisdom in addition to curiosity. Ultimately, the hypothetical discovery of Atlantis tomorrow is a thought experiment that illuminates the intersection of knowledge, imagination, and consequence. It challenges assumptions about history, encourages technological and cultural exploration, and highlights humanity's ongoing relationship with the ocean. It reminds us that beneath the waves lie stories waiting to be told, lessons waiting to be learned, and mysteries waiting to challenge our understanding. Atlantis, whether found or imagined, continues to shape the human quest for discovery, blending myth, reality, and the enduring allure of the unknown. Atlantis is more than a city lost to the waves. It is a symbol, a parable that transcends time and geography. Its narrative, whether myth, allegory, or historical possibility, carries profound lessons for humanity. In contemplating Atlantis, societies across millennia have reflected on ambition, ethics, environmental stewardship, and the fragile balance of civilization. The city's disappearance, sudden, absolute, and total, serves as a cautionary tale, a mirror in which humanity can examine its own trajectory. One of the most immediate lessons is the danger of hubris. Atlantis, according to Plato, was a civilization that achieved unparalleled wealth, technological sophistication, and mastery over its environment. Yet prosperity alone could not safeguard it. Moral decay and overconfidence, whether in rulers or citizens, weakened the social fabric. The city's fall illustrates that greatness, untempered by wisdom or ethical responsibility, carries inherent vulnerability. Societies today can see echoes of this lesson in environmental exploitation, social inequality, and political overreach. The myth warns that technological or economic advancement without moral grounding can lead to catastrophe. Environmental stewardship emerges as a second critical lesson. Rising seas, shifting tectonics, and other natural forces are central to the story of Atlantis. Even a civilization with immense engineering skill and energy mastery was not immune to the power of nature. The narrative emphasizes that humans, regardless of ingenuity, are part of the natural world, not its absolute masters. Modern society faces analogous challenges: climate change, deforestation, resource depletion, and urban vulnerability. Atlantis serves as a reminder that respecting ecological limits is not optional but essential for survival, and that failing to adapt to environmental realities can have irreversible consequences. The fall of Atlantis also underscores the importance of social cohesion and governance. Plato describes kings, officials, and civic structures that initially maintained order, yet eventual corruption eroded the effectiveness of institutions. This reflects the broader truth that the stability of civilization depends not solely on technology or wealth, but on shared values, trust, and ethical leadership. Modern civilizations, like Atlantis, can collapse not only due to external disasters, but also through internal division, inequality, and neglect of civic responsibility. The story highlights the intertwined nature of governance, ethics, and societal resilience. A lesson in humility is woven throughout the narrative. Atlantis, despite its grandeur, was ultimately impermanent. The city's sudden disappearance into the sea demonstrates the limits of human control, reminding societies that no amount of achievement can fully shield them from uncertainty. Humility, therefore, becomes a prerequisite for sustainable progress. It is a call to recognize that human ambition, while remarkable, exists within larger natural and social systems that cannot be ignored or overridden without consequence. Atlantis also teaches about the role of imagination and foresight. Its enduring presence in literature, philosophy, and popular culture illustrates that societies learn not only from tangible evidence, but also from stories, allegories, and reflection. The myth encourages speculation about what is possible, about what can be achieved with ingenuity and planning, but it simultaneously warns of the consequences of neglecting the broader context of those achievements. Imagination, coupled with responsibility, becomes both a tool for creation and a guide for ethical decision-making. Another lesson emerges in the relationship between technology and vulnerability. Atlantis is often depicted as technologically advanced, mastering energy, engineering, and urban planning. Yet these achievements did not prevent its demise. The story suggests that technology alone is insufficient. It must be integrated with ethical foresight, social cohesion, and environmental awareness. Modern parallels are clear. The most sophisticated tools, if misapplied or over-relied upon, cannot guarantee survival. Human ingenuity must be matched with wisdom to ensure longevity and stability. The narrative of Atlantis further emphasizes the impermanence of civilizations. Everything built, no matter how grand, is subject to decay, destruction, or transformation. This is a lesson in legacy. What endures may be memory, culture, and learning, rather than material structures. Today, nations, cities, and institutions are reminded that resilience requires adaptation, foresight, and a recognition of the impermanence inherent in human endeavors. Atlantis teaches that true legacy is not solely built of stone and metal, but of knowledge, ethics, and cultural impact. Atlantis also provides lessons in curiosity and exploration. The myth, whether grounded in reality or imagination, inspires generations to seek knowledge, uncover hidden truths, and challenge assumptions. Its story demonstrates that mystery fuels inquiry and that the pursuit of understanding, even in the absence of certainty, is valuable. Exploration, when combined with humility and ethical consideration, allows humanity to expand both physical and intellectual horizons. Finally, the story of Atlantis encourages reflection on interconnectedness. The city's rise and fall are a product of multiple factors: morality, governance, environment, and technology. No single element determines survival. Success and failure are contingent upon balance. For modern society, This reinforces the principle that progress cannot be isolated. Economic, social, and environmental factors are interconnected, and a failure in one domain can ripple across the whole. The narrative of Atlantis embodies this holistic understanding, illustrating that sustainable civilization requires integration, balance, and foresight. In essence, Atlantis is timeless because it encapsulates universal truths. It teaches that wealth and power are fragile, that nature is omnipotent, and that ethical and social integrity are indispensable for survival. It warns that technology, no matter how advanced, is not sufficient without responsible stewardship. It celebrates curiosity, imagination, and the quest for understanding while reminding humanity that every achievement carries the potential for unintended consequences. In this combination of aspiration and caution lies its enduring relevance. The lessons of Atlantis are as practical as they are philosophical. Societies that heed its warnings can better navigate environmental change, ethical dilemmas, technological advancement, and social organization. Civilizations that ignore its teachings risk hubris, vulnerability, and collapse. Atlantis, though lost beneath waves or perhaps never found, continues to educate, provoke, and inspire, offering a narrative that bridges past and present, legend and reality, imagination and foresight. Its story endures because it embodies the complexities, ambitions, and responsibilities inherent in human civilization. Atlantis, as a legend, is often considered a warning, a symbol of loss and impermanence. Yet it also prompts reflection on humanity's own traces, the physical, cultural, and ecological marks left on the planet, which may one day become the myths of future generations. Every city, road, dam, and monument is simultaneously an achievement and a footprint, a signal that human civilization has existed, thrived, and transformed the environment. The question becomes inevitable. If the world's great cities were suddenly submerged, what would remain, and what would future observers interpret? Consider the modern coastline, dense with cities and infrastructure. Beaches, harbors, and river mouths are lined with constructions designed to control nature, seawalls, piers, and ports. These structures endure because they are engineered to resist erosion and water, yet over centuries, rising seas and tectonic shifts could claim even the most resilient edifices. Concrete and steel may endure underwater, but organic materials, roads, and unprotected structures would degrade, leaving only skeletal outlines of human activity. Future civilizations, or advanced explorers, might encounter fragments reminiscent of Atlantis, prompting speculation about the societies that built them. Beneath the surface, the ocean carries another record: pollution, sediment disruption, and chemical traces of industrial activity. Plastics, metals, and toxins persist far longer than expected, creating a layered archive of human impact. Sediment cores reveal historical shifts in land use, deforestation, and agricultural runoff. In these layers, the story of human civilization is etched invisibly, detectable only by careful observation and scientific inquiry. The traces left behind are not always intentional monuments. Often, they are residues, the unplanned markers of existence. Yet they provide evidence as enduring as walls or temples. The impermanence of cities also underscores the role of preservation and memory. Historical sites on land often survive by accident, climate, or maintenance. Yet underwater, the same markers are far more vulnerable. Coastal settlements, subject to storms and sea level rise, may vanish entirely. Roads, bridges, and dwellings could be lost to sediment or decay, leaving only hints for archaeologists or explorers to interpret. Atlantis serves as a metaphor here. Even great civilizations, with all their ingenuity, can leave incomplete records of their existence, and interpretation of remnants is always shaped by perception, context, and imagination. Cultural traces, however, are more resilient than stone. Stories, myths, rituals, and traditions transmit knowledge, values, and memory beyond the lifespan of physical structures. Oral histories preserve information about floods, migrations, and settlements long vanished. Written records, artworks, and religious texts may survive in archives or on resistant materials, allowing fragments of society to outlast the collapse of cities. Atlantis reminds humanity that while material structures are fragile, the collective cultural memory often endures, shaping future understanding and inspiring continued inquiry. Archaeologists and oceanographers today confront similar challenges. They discover sunken towns, submerged villages, and coastal settlements now obscured by water. These sites provide a glimpse into human adaptation, how societies managed resources, responded to environmental change, and organized urban life. Even when complete structures have disappeared, the traces of roads, foundations, and canals reveal patterns of habitation, engineering, and social behavior. By studying these traces, humanity reconstructs its own history, learning from both achievements and mistakes. Human traces extend beyond civilization to environmental impact. Dams, deforested regions, and altered waterways leave marks visible even after centuries of natural reclamation. Coastal modification, harbor construction, and sediment diversion can be traced in geological and oceanic records. These modifications reflect a civilization's priorities, technological capability, and relationship with nature. Atlantis, imagined or real, mirrors this process. An entire society's imprint can survive in subtle ways, embedded in topography, sediment, or underwater formations. The reflection on humanity's own traces is also a meditation on legacy and mortality. Every city, like Atlantis, has a beginning, a period of growth, and a potential for decline or disappearance. Monuments and infrastructure communicate ambition, but they also testify to vulnerability. The traces left behind, whether stone foundations, digital records, or cultural narratives, become a dialogue with future generations. They pose questions. Who were these people? How did they live? What did they value? Atlantis serves as the ultimate cautionary example of how traces endure, sometimes as stories, sometimes as physical remnants, often both. Technology plays a dual role in preserving and interpreting traces. Modern tools, satellite imagery, sonar mapping, and 3D reconstruction allow the detection of submerged sites, providing insights into past civilizations before they are completely lost. Digital archiving preserves cultural knowledge, while artificial intelligence can analyze patterns and remnants to reconstruct urban planning, trade networks, and social structure. In this way, humanity creates a second layer of traces, records, and interpretations that may outlast the original structures themselves, ensuring that knowledge persists even if the material world is reclaimed by nature. The ethical dimension is unavoidable. Studying humanity's traces requires care, respect, and humility. Disturbing submerged sites or artifacts can destroy information, just as misinterpretation can mislead future observers. The story of Atlantis emphasizes stewardship. The traces of civilizations, both imagined and real, deserve protection, study, and reverent curiosity. In examining these traces, humanity must balance exploration with preservation, learning from the past without exploiting it. Ultimately, humanity's traces, like the memory of Atlantis, tell a dual story, one of achievement and one of impermanence. Cities rise, technology advances, and culture flourishes, yet even the grandest constructions are temporary in the vast scale of time. The ocean, in its patient and indifferent presence, collects, conceals, and preserves these traces, offering them to those who seek understanding. Atlantis serves as both mirror and metaphor. A civilization may vanish, but its marks, whether physical or cultural, endure, prompting reflection, exploration, and imagination. In contemplating what remains, humanity confronts its own mortality and legacy. The structures, artifacts, and stories left behind are evidence of existence, aspiration, and creativity. They offer warnings and guidance, lessons and inspiration, glimpses of both greatness and fragility. Like Atlantis, every trace is a narrative, a fragment of civilization's ongoing dialogue with time. By studying, preserving, and learning from these traces, humanity honors the past, enriches the present, and prepares for a future that may one day itself become submerged in memory, myth, and the relentless tide of history. The ocean is patient. It observes silently, indifferent yet all-encompassing, recording events across millennia. Every current, every sediment layer, and every submerged structure is part of its memory. The deep is not conscious in human terms, yet it bears witness to the rise and fall of civilizations, the ambition and folly of humanity, and the transient triumphs of the built world. In contemplating Atlantis, one senses this vigilance. The city may be gone, but the deep has not forgotten. Time flows differently in the ocean. Layers of silt settle gradually, preserving impressions of structures and human activity in a slow-motion archive. Organic matter, stone, and artifacts are buried beneath currents and sediment, shielded from immediate observation. Shipwrecks and submerged cities remain suspended between discovery and oblivion, as if waiting for someone to notice. In this way, the ocean functions as both archivist and judge, maintaining traces of existence long after the people who created them are gone. The deep's watch is impartial. It records neither heroism nor hubris, morality nor sin. Atlantis, with its grandeur and pride, was claimed by the waves, yet the deep simply kept the evidence of its existence. Coral and sediment encase ruins. Currents shape and reshape them over centuries. The ocean is an indifferent historian, chronicling all without judgment, ensuring that nothing is ever entirely lost. To the observer, it seems as though the waters remember, even if the memory is silent, cryptic, and fragmented. Humanity often underestimates the ocean's scale and patience. Coastal civilizations rise and fall within decades or centuries, yet the sea endures beyond human timescales. Cities are constructed and abandoned, monuments erected and toppled, infrastructure built and eroded, yet the ocean retains traces imperceptible to the casual eye. Atlantis serves as a potent reminder. The deeper the water, the slower the change, the more enduring the archive. Even the grandest ambitions are ultimately preserved in the subtle shifts of sediment, the placement of stone, or the contours of the seabed. The ocean also conceals as it preserves. Currents redistribute sediment, eroding and depositing materials unpredictably. Submerged cities may appear fragmented or obscured, their layout hidden beneath layers of natural processes. For explorers, archaeologists, and researchers, this presents both challenge and allure. Each dive, sonar scan, or remotely operated vehicle mission is an attempt to decode a memory encoded in water and sediment. Atlantis may lie partially visible, partially hidden, inviting both investigation and imagination. The deep's observation extends beyond human constructs. Entire ecosystems grow around submerged structures, forming coral reefs, kelp forests, and habitats for marine life. Shipwrecks and ruins become artificial reefs, hosting countless species and preserving ecological history alongside human history. In this way, the ocean watches not only human ambition but the response of life to change. Atlantis, or its analogs, would have been transformed into a dynamic underwater environment where natural and human history intertwine, each layer telling multiple stories at once. Personifying the deep highlights its role in shaping human understanding. Myths of Atlantis gain power precisely because the ocean is unknowable, vast, and watchful. The notion that the sea witnesses our actions resonates with human intuition. A city can vanish, a civilization can collapse, yet the evidence persists, awaiting discovery. This gives the ocean an almost sentient quality, a silent observer that grants both caution and wonder. Every expedition, every sonar image, and every submerged artifact is a conversation with this patient witness. Exploration becomes a dialogue with the deep. Modern technology allows submersibles to descend into abyssal plains, mapping features and collecting data. Each observation contributes to the ocean's unfolding narrative, adding clarity to patterns that have persisted for millennia. Yet for every discovery, thousands of square kilometers remain uncharted, a reminder that the deep continues to watch, indifferent, patient, and enduring. Atlantis, imagined or real, exists within this continuum of observation and preservation. The ocean's watch is both reassuring and humbling. It reminds humanity that existence is temporal, but impact is lasting. Structures, cities, and even civilizations can disappear from human memory, yet the deep retains evidence, subtly and silently. Atlantis is a testament to this principle. Whether the city existed or was allegorical, the notion that the ocean preserves its trace inspires both reflection and exploration. In a broader sense, it encourages respect for the environment, the passage of time, and the responsibilities inherent in creation. Silence is central to this observation. Unlike human records, the ocean does not comment, interpret, or evaluate. Its memory is encoded in physical and chemical processes, waiting for attentive observers to decipher. Sediment layers, mineral deposits, and structural remnants carry information without bias. For Atlantis, this means that while the story may be lost in folklore or imagination, its trace remains in patterns of erosion, submerged formations, and archaeological evidence. The deep's impartiality ensures that history is preserved without distortion, leaving interpretation to those who seek it. The patient vigilance of the deep offers perspective. Civilizations rise and fall, empires conquer and collapse. Humanity's reach may be fleeting, yet its actions leave marks, however subtle, that the ocean records. Atlantis exemplifies this dynamic. The city vanished above water, but its memory endures, encoded in the structures, sediments, and stories that survive. The ocean watches all, a reminder that existence, whether celebrated or forgotten, contributes to the ongoing narrative of the planet. Ultimately, the deep's observation is a form of immortality. Atlantis may serve as the archetype, a civilization that is gone yet remembered through fragments, imagination, and sedimentary evidence. The ocean is both archivist and witness, its presence constant, patient, and unfathomable. For humanity, this is a call to humility, respect, and curiosity, to recognize that while time erases, the deep preserves. While civilizations collapse, traces remain, and while humans forget, the ocean never does. In this silent observation, there is also hope. Atlantis and countless other lost civilizations, real or imagined, remind us that discovery is always possible. Sunken cities, submerged roads, and forgotten settlements lie within reach of exploration. The deep's watch encourages both reverence and action. It challenges humanity to look, to study, and to honor the past while shaping a future that may also leave enduring traces. In every current, every trench, every sonar signal, the deep bears witness, and in its memory, the story of Atlantis continues, timeless and eternal. The journey through the ocean's depths comes full circle. After exploring sunken myths, submerged cities, and the vast, unmapped abyss, the mind ascends, returning to the surface where light meets water and imagination meets reality. The ocean, having revealed fragments of history, mystery, and possibility, leaves a lingering sense of awe. Atlantis, whether real or allegorical, remains a guide through this exploration, a symbol of humanity's curiosity and its limitations. Breaking the surface is both literal and symbolic. Light penetrates water, revealing glimmers of the world above, waves, sky, and distant coastlines. The pressure, darkness, and silence of the deep give way to air, movement, and sound. For the explorer, scientist, or dreamer, returning to the surface brings reflection. The discoveries beneath the waves are now interpreted in the context of the broader human experience. Atlantis and other submerged mysteries remind us that the unseen often holds as much significance as the visible, shaping understanding in subtle yet profound ways. This ascent also emphasizes perspective. From the surface, the vastness of the ocean is apparent, stretching beyond the horizon, seemingly infinite. The submerged remnants, mapped or imagined, are small fragments within this immense expanse. The contrast highlights both the scale of the unknown and the fragility of human endeavors. Cities rise and fall, civilizations flourish and collapse. Yet the ocean endures, impartial and eternal. Atlantis becomes a lens through which humanity views its achievements, limitations, and potential for perseverance. The surface, however, is not devoid of connection to the depths. Currents, tides, and waves are extensions of the underwater world, linking sunken ruins to shores and ports. Sediment and debris travel from the deep to beaches, and storms reveal glimpses of structures hidden for centuries. The ocean is a continuum. What lies below influences the world above. In this way, the deep and the surface are inseparable, and understanding one requires acknowledgement of the other. Atlantis, resting silently below, reminds humanity that history is layered, continuous, and interconnected. Reflection at the surface encourages contemplation of temporality. The discoveries beneath the waves, whether ruins, artifacts, or traces of vanished societies, underscore the impermanence of human constructs. Atlantis serves as a parable of both achievement and loss. Observing the waves, one recognizes that civilizations, no matter how grand, exist within the flow of time, subject to forces beyond control. Human endeavor is significant yet finite, a momentary imprint in the vast expanse of planetary history. The return also highlights lessons of humility. Modern technology allows submersibles, sonar, and drones to reach previously inaccessible depths. Yet even with advanced tools, the ocean remains largely unknown. Sunken cities, submerged plains, and unmapped trenches testify to the limits of comprehension. The surface is a reminder that exploration is continuous, that mastery is partial, and that each discovery is both an achievement and an invitation to deeper inquiry. Atlantis symbolizes this tension. The pursuit of knowledge is endless, guided by curiosity and tempered by uncertainty. In addition, the surface invites synthesis. The ocean's mysteries, geological, biological, and archaeological, intersect with human imagination, culture, and ethics. Atlantis becomes a nexus for these threads, a story that has shaped exploration, inspired technology, and provoked reflection on morality and sustainability. Observers at the surface carry lessons from the deep, the consequences of hubris, the resilience and fragility of life, and the importance of stewardship. These insights inform not only scholarship but also cultural understanding, shaping how humanity interacts with the natural world. The surface also allows for narrative closure without finality. Atlantis, though unseen or partially discovered, is both concluded and ongoing. The journey beneath the waves may end, but the story continues in human memory, in speculation, and in the records of exploration. The surface becomes a vantage point from which to integrate discoveries, reinterpret legends, and project the implications of lost civilizations onto the present. Atlantis serves as a reminder that closure is relative. While the deep holds mysteries, the surface offers reflection, continuity, and the capacity to contextualize. The philosophical dimension of returning to the surface is profound. Light and air, space and perspective invite contemplation of human existence within the larger natural order. Atlantis, as a myth or historical possibility, underscores the interplay between ambition and humility, creation and impermanence, imagination and reality. Observers realize that knowledge is cumulative, that each generation builds on the questions and discoveries of the last. The surface allows a pause, a synthesis of understanding, where the lessons of the deep inform thought, action, and aspiration. Moreover, the ascent evokes emotional resonance. The ocean's grandeur, the silence of submerged ruins, and the vast unknown evoke wonder, fear, and reverence. Atlantis, emblematic of human ambition and its consequences, connects these feelings to reflection. The surface offers a moment to reconcile the awe of exploration with the responsibilities it entails, to protect, preserve, and interpret. It reminds humanity that discovery carries weight, that every uncovering is an ethical and intellectual responsibility, and that the ocean's secrets are gifts to be approached with care. Returning to the surface also encourages anticipation. The ocean, though partially mapped and partially imagined, remains a realm of infinite possibility. Sunken civilizations, hidden ecosystems, and geological anomalies await exploration. Atlantis, whether ever fully found or not, continues to inspire inquiry and imagination. Each expedition, sonar sweep, or dive is part of an ongoing dialogue with the deep, a conversation that continues even when the observer ascends to light and air. The surface represents both an end and a beginning, the culmination of a journey and the promise of future discovery. Ultimately, the surface is where the lessons of the deep take hold. Humanity emerges from the ocean's depths carrying knowledge, reflection, and imagination. Atlantis, as a symbol, endures in this synthesis, a city of ambition, mystery, and memory, preserved in story, sediment, and consciousness. The return to the surface is a reminder that exploration is cyclical. The unknown beckons, discoveries accumulate, and each ascent offers a chance to integrate, reflect, and prepare for the next ascent. In this way, the journey is eternal, and Atlantis remains a compass for curiosity, wonder, and the human pursuit of understanding.